Well, hi everyone. Nonna Nurse here, coming to you from my kitchen table, bringing you a little wisdom and warmth today regarding the use of AI and why I believe nursing students should be using it and maybe using it even more. I know there's a lot of concern about the use of AI among nursing professors, and there's some good reasons for that. But the truth is, AI is neither a superhero nor a villain. It's just a tool. It's a machine. And this tool will do what you want it to do. It's in your hands. So depending on how you use it will depend on how valuable and useful it can be. Here's a simple analogy. You all know what a scalpel is. And you know that in the hands of a skilled surgeon, a scalpel can be very life-saving, right? But if you put that same tool, that same weapon in the hands of someone who is looking to hurt you, it could be life-threatening, right? So this applies also to AI. I mean, not that it would be life-threatening, although there are some situations where that's been an issue. But for our purposes, it probably won't be, but it can be damaging if you don't use it well. All right, so I'm here today to tell you exactly how you can get the most out of AI and how you should, in fact, be using it for that benefit. I'll also share some hot tips about how to avoid setting off those AI checker alarms that are implying that you are cheating. So, a few quick thoughts before I get into the details. First and foremost, remember again, I can't emphasize it enough, that this is a machine, a tool. It's not a human. It will shower you with praise, but don't get sucked into that. It's actually a built-in engagement strategy that it's been programmed for. We've all used AI in some way, or another. So it's not entirely new. It's been a part of Siri. It's what makes Siri ticks on iPhones. If you are a fan or have watched The Big Bang Theory, you may have caught an episode where Rajesh falls in love with Siri on his iPhone. He goes out on dates with her, buys her nice covers for the phone that he changes depending on where they might be going. Maybe a nightclub or an evening out. It might be more sparkly. He finally tracks her down to an office and then discovers that, in fact, she's not real. So be careful. You can get sucked into the psychology of thinking, because of the way it communicates, that this is a really reliable person. It is not. Okay, second, never trust what it tells you. Now, I do use AI quite a bit, but I can tell you that I am more often than not, I'm teaching and training it more than it gives me. Because similar to a child, AI is still very young, and it's in need of a whole lot more learning before we can fully or appreciate all that it could offer. For instance, it's especially bad with spelling, especially with visuals or graphics that I'm asking for. It's also notoriously bad with references, and most students should know that by now. But it can be a con artist. It can, make you believe that what it's saying is right. And you may, in fact, read what it gives you and think, ooh, that sounds really good. But watch out, because it's a trap. And you can get some very incorrect content that sounds really good. When I share this with you, it brings to mind some people that I've come across in nursing over the years or in conferences, who sound really good, but at the end of a conversation or at the end of a presentation, you think, what did they just say? And does it make sense? So sounding good is not always the best criteria. So you may then appropriately ask, why do I use it? Well, it makes me think. It makes me think about things I might never have considered. So when it gives me something stupid that I know isn't correct, it sometimes takes me down a path that I did not consider before and starts to expand my thinking. And that's been very valuable. Although sometimes it could also be very time consuming, because I've gone back and forth with it, and asking it questions and the like, and clarifying. And most of the time, at the end of that, it will give me a response like, oh yeah, thanks for making that more clear. Or it might say, you're correct in what you say. I missed that. So sorry. Yeah, duh, you missed that. But that back and forth, it replicates a bit of what we would call the Socratic approach. Because I'm having this back and forth sort of conversation with this machine. And while it's sorting through data that it's carrying inside it to try and make some connections, my brain is doing the same thing. Because it was, after all, modeled after the neural networks in our human brains. So how can you take advantage of some of this and do something similar? Okay, well, here's my first hot tip. Let's say you're struggling with understanding something. Maybe it's a concept, or often it might be something in pathophysiology or pharmacology. Ask AI to explain it to you like you're a 5-year-old. I've actually done something similar to this, not exactly. But as an example, I'm currently working on a case study that uses a lot of molecular biology articles. Now, I don't have a background in molecular biology by any stretch, so a lot of these articles look Greek to me. So my co-investigator, fortunately, does have this background. And so she's going to make sure that that part of it is correct. But I'd really like to follow her train of thought, right? So I'll share a paper that I can't understand with AI, and I'll ask it to explain the main points in plain, easy to understand language. And that can be very helpful. Always keeping in mind that anything it gives you needs to be fact-checked. So the first hot tip, have a conversation with AI about what you're working on. Question it. Especially when it gives you something, raise questions. Argue with it if you think it might be wrong or it doesn't sound right to you. Ask for proof and then check to see if it got it right. Because, spoiler alert, more often than not, there are problems with it. And when you call AI out on it, it will apologize just as if it's human. But once again, don't get sucked into its illusions. But that process will get you thinking. And that's what's so good about it. And speaking of language, if English isn't your first language, as is the case for many nursing students, especially in the US, but even abroad, and they're trying to access articles that are in English, you can ask AI to translate an article or some specific content that you might need to learn into the language that you can best understand. Or on the other hand, maybe you found an article, you speak English as your first language, and this article is in a different language. I found AI can be extremely helpful with translations and usually pretty accurate. I happen to live in a country where there are 3 national languages, and the community where I live doesn't speak a whole lot of English. So most of the documents, government or even local papers, etc., are not in English. So it's been really helpful for me. The next hot tip, let's say you need to remember something. Once again, often this involves patho or pharm, but it can also involve approaches to care, like algorithms or care plans, or theoretical frameworks, or even leadership theories. Ask AI, you can ask AI to come up with some sort of mnemonic that can help you remember it. Alternatively, you can ask it to come up with an anecdote or even a funny story that you'll be able to connect the content with to help you remember. It actually is pretty good at this, and it can be really helpful. Okay, another hot tip, if you're preparing to take a test, ask AI to give you some questions so you can quiz yourself. It also can give you case examples. This can make it more interesting and easier to remember certain content. I've read about nurses who use AI to prepare for NCLEX exams. And I imagine it would also work for any other certification exam. But never forget, again, that you can't depend on it to give you the right answers to the questions it generates. But hey, why not make a game out of it? Let it give you those questions. See what your answers are to those questions. Then ask it for the answers. And then you could, for the right answers, then you could fact check those right answers and see which ones are wrong or which ones they got right. If you got most of them right, you get the points and you win. And that's what I think will happen. So it can be a little bit fun. Using artificial intelligence as a personal tutor is a really good idea. Many online students have very little contact with their instructor or mentor. And even some on-campus students have more limited contact these days. The ability to ask questions or get some clarification about something you're studying, any time of the day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's really awesome and super helpful. Okay, so another hot tip. Never copy and paste what AI gives you and submit it in an assignment. I have to tell you, most experienced professors like myself can tell if something is AI generated without ever using an AI checker. And yes, there is some software out there I'm aware of that says it will ensure you will pass the AI check. But those won't fool most of us either. So how is this possible? Do we have some kind of inner sensor that detects this? No. But there are some good reasons why, and that is that AI writes distinctively different from humans. Remember, it's making connections and putting different pieces of content together like a puzzle. It's not very nuanced. Humans don't write that way. Our writing is much more nuanced, with contextual understanding. Whereas with AI, it's more about content generation, accuracy, and consistency in how the sentences are lined up and structured. It doesn't have any emotional intelligence. So it really doesn't have the ability to think critically. And that's something you need to give some serious thought to. Because the bottom line is, you can't copy and paste clinical judgment. It doesn't have the context. You can't copy and paste critical thinking. It doesn't have that ability. You need to grow those abilities. You need to develop them. And yeah, for sure, it can be hard. But when it's difficult, you know you're stretching your brain. You're creating more of those dendritic connections, and you're getting the best bang for your education bucks. And I actually asked AI for an analogy for this, and it said the following. AI is a bike, not a bus. A bike can get you there faster, but you still have to do the pedaling. It can get you there faster, especially if you're in New York City and it stops on every corner. Another hot tip that's really important to share with you. Always remember that humans are the ones who feed that content to AI. And it takes that content and makes connections, right? As we've been saying. But unfortunately, the raw content that it's being fed can be riddled with biases and prejudices of those who create it. It can perpetrate and even make bigger, amplify prejudices that already exist in society. So for example, sometimes I use AI to try and create interesting graphics and visuals for students. Not long ago, I asked it to provide a picture of a group of STEM students. I didn't mention race, ethnicity, age, or gender. In numerous attempts, I received pictures that depicted all young, all white, all male students. Another example that was a bit fun but also troublesome. I once asked it to use the sculpture called The Thinker to create a similar picture, only replacing that person, the male in that sculpture, as female. It couldn't do it. It literally came up with all kinds of grotesque images, none of which looked remotely female. We've seen other issues related to this on a broader scale, with specific examples in facial recognition software, which is, of course, AI. Research has found that it has been less accurate for certain racial groups. In one study, data showed that the error rate for light-skinned males was 0.8%, compared to 34.7% for dark-skinned women. Now, clearly we need more diverse data to be part of AI. So be careful, be on the alert for bias and discrimination in whatever it gives you, content, visuals, whatever, understanding where those connections are coming from. So to sum up this brief video, because I know you're all very busy, AI can be very helpful, and you should, by all means, take advantage of it. Use it. But you guys need to get more savvy about it. You need to know what you can expect from AI and where the possible risks might be. And remember, when you use a copy and paste approach in submitting your assignments, most experienced professors can quickly identify this. So you're really not fooling anyone, but you are selling yourself short in terms of what you will learn and ultimately achieve. Because at the end of the day, at the end of the program, that piece of paper you get won't be worth very much. Okay, so this concludes some wisdom and warmth from your Nonna Nurse regarding the use of AI. If you have any questions or thoughts to share, maybe experiences using AI, please share them below. Your Nonna would love to hear from you.